Let's get to our good friend Sheriff David Clarke. Sheriff Clarke is a senior advisor for America First policies and a big supporter of President Trump, former sheriff of Milwaukee. He is America's sheriff. Sheriff Clarke, Happy New Year.
John, Happy New Year to you and your listeners, and congrats on your 8 years in the business.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheriff. I appreciate that. So, Sheriff, right out of the bat, first of all, I have to give a shout out to one of our listeners, Leslie, in Birmingham, Alabama, and her contingent of Trump train followers. And Leslie says, "What about me in Alabama, my chopped liver?" So thank you for Leslie for that. You've been a very loyal listener for a very long time, and we thank you in all of Trump Alabama Nation. So, Sheriff, it's, New Year's, first day after New Year's, you're with your family, you get up today, and the first thing you hit with is an op-ed by Mitt Romney, who will be sworn in tomorrow as a U.S. Senator from Utah, blasting President Trump and his policies. I mean, first day, right out of the box. What is up with these people?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It seems like Mitt Romney's going to be the next Jeff Flake or Corker, Bob Corker, I think his name is. And being a GOP member who's going to attack and poke at President of the United States. President doesn't need people like this in the Senate or in Congress. He made it clear during the midterms. He said, I need more Republicans, but he said, I need more Republicans that are going to support his agenda. And it appears to me that Mitt Romney still has a chip on his shoulder over the way he was handled on the Secretary of State position. If you recall that, he was left dangling out there a long time. And, here the guy was a former GOP nominee for President of the United States. And when he lost that, and then he shouldn't have, he lost to a guy that had the worst numbers going into the election in Barack Obama, the worst economic numbers of any president in history. The presidents that have had those kind of economic numbers going into re-election have lost. And here Mitt Romney couldn't even beat Barack Obama under those circumstances. So he's going to be the next Jeff Flake.
Well, I think that's what he's positioning himself for. I mean, he couldn't even wait till he got sworn in to now take this mantle. And look, he's just part of the old Whig Republican set, the gangster bankster, Goldman Sachs, Lower Manhattan funded group that couldn't win anything. So I want to get now to the border security, Sheriff Clarke. Yesterday, the Border Patrol, under the supervision of Department of Homeland Security, has to tear gas migrants throwing rocks trying to breach the wall or the fence. Let me just ask you something straight up. If there was no fence there, would they have been able to stop any of these people from coming in?
No, not at all. And good for the Border Patrol down there for taking assertive action. Shouldn't have to put up with this crap from people who are trying to illegally force their way into the country. That is a violent act. This is what's going on at the border that's undercovered by the lying liberal media. They try to make it seem like it's just poor women and pregnant women and children trying to come in looking for a better life, looking to flee dangerous conditions from their country. No, most of these individuals are young males. They're people who are going to come into this country and do the same thing. We just had a California law enforcement officer killed in the line of duty, murdered in the line of duty by an illegal alien in Newman, California. A guy who came in the right way. Ronald Singh is his name. Officer Ronald Singh immigrated from Fiji, came in the right way, became a U.S. citizen, and then went on to serve his community as a law enforcement officer. And he's killed by a guy illegally in the country. I was looking up some data, John, and the number of illegal aliens committing crimes rose dramatically in 2017. And I'm talking about for some serious stuff. Because I don't know how they come up with this definition of what a violent crime is, because they don't consider burglary a violent crime. Burglary is a very violent crime. If you've ever been burglarized, you're traumatized. Plus, with most states now having a castle doctrine, you can shoot and kill an intruder who's illegally or unlawfully, I should say, in your house. So you look at nearly 60,000 illegal immigrants in 2017 were arrested for driving under the influence. That is a very serious crime. So you look at how we've watered that down as well. And this is what the problem is. This is what President Trump is trying to put the focus on, and we have to fix the system. Look, when you're in somebody's country, even if you're in there lawfully, you're a guest. And it's not too much to ask that you adhere to that country's laws. But when you're in the country illegally, I don't think that it's too much to ask that those people obey the laws, and that if you do even things like theft, larceny, assault, simple assault, you should be deported.
So I don't think there's any question here about the border security, the fence there in Tijuana going into San Diego, right? Without that, they would have just come over. So there's no question you need some kind of a barrier. I just don't get this argument that the Democrats are having. Now they're going to put forth a bill. They take over on the 3rd with no border security, with no wall money. The president's going to veto it. The president has invited them into compromise. What should the president's position be now, Sheriff Clarke?
Well, its position should be just what it is. Just hold out. Like I said previously, the president is talking about policy. He's talking about border security, the safety and security of citizens in the United States. He's talking about U.S. sovereignty. That's an aspect of the United States Constitution. Whereas Schumer and Pelosi are talking about politics. They want to deny the president a campaign win. The president made it very clear during his campaign. He ran on it that he's going to do everything he could to secure the United States, to fix this broken illegal immigration system. So right now, the president's made it very clear. I read an article not too long ago, this morning, where he said it's a non-starter. Don't send any bill up here that doesn't include border security, including funding for some sort of wall or barrier. But the Senate's made it clear, and I'm glad to hear Mitch McConnell say that they're not going to even work on anything from the House that doesn't include some sort of border security and funding for a wall. So it's a standoff right now, but the president's going to win. Look, this thing's been, shut down, partial shutdown for 10, 11 days now. Mm-hmm. Nobody's noticed anything, and nobody would notice anything. That's mm-hmm. why I said that boogeyman doesn't scare anybody anymore, that mm-hmm. the Democrats like to use against Republicans who run from it like it's the plague whenever they hear shutdown. Mm-hmm. And other than some non-essential federal employees. But you know what? Here's another thing, John. Think about this. We have more jobs in the United States than people to fill them. If we have so many non-essential federal employees, why don't we get rid of them and they can go into the private sector? I don't want anybody to lose their job and be out of work, but there's plenty of jobs out there now. These federal employees can go out and get a job in the private sector and find out how different it is out there. When you're held accountable, you can be fired for underproduction, all these things that can't happen when you're a federal employee. So there's other aspects to this shutdown as well that would benefit the American people.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, the point that you bring up, Sheriff Clarke, is it's been 10, 11 days. The sky's not fallen. The end of the world is not upon us. Nothing has happened. I mean, there's some garbage cans that are overflowing, and next in the West is the only thing I've heard about it. So what we've been saying for 2 weeks is these are not people that are not going to get paid, right? So they're basically staying home now. It's a paid vacation because at some point in time, the government will reopen. And if it's been 2 months on the first paycheck, they'll get that week they're owed plus 2 months. So all of the money comes back to them. So they just have to figure out how to get through the short term. Meantime, they've got a paid vacation. So this whole thing about, people out on the street and they can't put food on the table. Look, you have access to cash when you're able to tell somebody as soon as the government reopens, I can pay you back or put the money back in savings or pay off my card or whatever, because they all get paid. So it's not like the money's gone. You know what I'd like to see? Somebody suggested this the other day is that Congress doesn't get paid and there's no back pay, and their staffs don't get paid and there's no back pay. Now that would be something that might change the outcome, wouldn't it?
Sure, and and I'm not going to get into people's personal finances, but let me say this: if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you need to check yourself anyway. Maybe this will be a wake-up call, and people will adjust their budgets. These federal employees that aren't being paid, but I still don't know why they're being paid afterwards. I think whenever they resolve this thing, they ought to write in that those are just wages lost. And here's what I mean by that. I talked about the private sector. You'll find out how good they have it in the federal government. If there's a labor dispute And let's say the company is dealing with a union or an organized labor outfit on a contract, and they can't come to a resolution, and the company imposes a lockout and locks the employees out. When that's resolved, they don't get paid. You're out of work.
Right.
I mean, you lost that money. I don't know why we're going to pay these individuals for not working. Why is that on the American people, where if you're in the private sector, like I said, you don't get back pay if the corporation decides to lock you out. So, why should we do it this way? But I'm not trying to be hard on these individuals, but I am saying that there's a problem. The federal government employs too many people. If we have a classification of non-essential, what private corporation who has to deal with bottom line and is operating on the margins anyway in terms of profits, what company can afford to hang on to non-essential employees? You have to keep labor costs down, as any private corporation knows. So when you look at this, beyond the fact that this is over illegal immigration, I mean, there's something very wrong in the federal government, which is why, we're talking about $4 trillion continuing resolutions. We're talking about $21 trillion in debt. Mm-hmm. This is a problem beyond illegal immigration.
Mm-hmm. No, I think you're right. Look, non-essential, 800,000 non-essential employees. Now we're really finding out that they are non-essential because, life goes on. We're with Sheriff David Clarke. He's a senior policy advisor for America First Policies. For more information, americasheriff.com, americasheriff.com. Sheriff Clarke, the president asking the Democrats and Republicans to come to the White House today to negotiate a deal to get this thing resolved. So if the Democrats offer $3 billion for the wall, $3.5, $2.9, they probably could get this resolved. But Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi are saying you're not getting a penny, not one dime for it. And so they're dug in. It's an insignificant amount of money when you really look at a $4 trillion budget. You said earlier it's politics over policy. I think you're right. Why wouldn't the Democrats simply compromise here and move on?
They can't because of the politics. The politics gets in the way. Look, they got a rabid segment of their party, the uber lefties, the radical wing has taken over, and they know that they'll be held to pay, Schumer and Pelosi, if they cave on this political issue, even though it's in the best interest of the United States, the best interest of U.S. citizens to deal with this from a policy perspective. So that's why they can't. You're right. This is a very insignificant figure. $5 billion is a lot of money to you and I. It's a lot of money to a lot of people. But when you're talking about a $4 trillion budget, I saw a figure the other day. It's like 0.01% of this $4 trillion. And again, this is about the security of the United States, and you can't put a price tag on that, which is what the president's saying, that this is essential, this is important, in the best interest of the United States. So they can't cave. I mean, that's how they would look at it. They're going to be caving where the president is leaving open. President Trump has said, I'm open to negotiating this. And like you said, John, okay, if it's 3.5, you give me 3, whatever. We have to have something in terms of the border security for wall funding. They've dug their heels in and said there will be no wall funding, okay? That's not how you negotiate politics with the safety and security of the United States, but that's how low they'll go. They're willing to do that. They're willing to have people illegally in this country committing crimes, adding to a strain on federal services like healthcare systems, schools, so on and so forth, and using other public services. They're willing to do that for people illegally in the
It's all going to get exposed. I really do. The Democrats, Sheriff Clarke, are saying, 2019 is going to be the year when the whole Trump presidency collapses. I really think it's going to be the opposite. I think it's going to be where the Trump administration continues to get success, and the big lies like the tax cuts for the rich and the Russia collusion is all going to be exposed for the nonsense it is. I think 2019 for us, sir, is going to be great. We're out of time. We're with Sheriff David Clarke, Senior Policy Advisor for America First Policies. Get more information at americasheriff.com, americasheriff.com. Sheriff, Happy New Year. Great to have you, man.